Welcome to Litcast, the podcast covering literature notes and revision for GCSE. These podcasts are designed to be used as an additional revision tool. There's nothing new or groundbreaking here, just revision notes in an on-the-go friendly format. Using these alone won't guarantee you an A star, but they can help you build your confidence to apply this knowledge to your exam questions and your classwork. With that being said, let's get started. Hello and welcome back. In this episode we are going to be looking at the theme of appearance and reality in the novel Heroes by Robert Cormier. Appearance and reality is another major theme in the text and appears in many different ways. So we've got the appearance and reality of war, and really we explored that quite a bit in heroism and in the minor characters and with Francis in previous episodes. So looking at the propaganda, movie style, and they kind of see almost caricatures of these soldiers up on the screen in the cinema. That kind of caricature style of the war, where everyone's in glittering heroes who they go out and they perform these major heroic deeds, and then they come back to great applause, and everyone loves them. Very much like the story that we see of Larry LaSalle in the context of war. So there's that kind of fairy tale appearance of war, and then we very much see the realities, and we see that through the minor characters. So if you listen to the episode where we look at the minor characters, you can really see the impact that the war has had on all of them in different ways. And of course the war has had a huge impact on Francis as well, and throughout the text we get this idea that actually war is horrible and it affects very young people who aren't emotionally ready for dealing with trauma that no one should have to really deal with, and then they're not really helped that much afterwards. So there's that appearance and reality of war there. As well as that, we've got this idea of appearance versus reality, most notably in Larry, and this idea of perhaps confronting the evil within Larry. So evil has different forms, and obviously Larry is very much masked underneath this movie star smile and being the hero that everyone loves. And initially he's very much worthy of admiration. But for this reason, the revelation of what he does to Nicole is made that much more dramatic and that much more horrendous, because it's so unexpected. We don't expect the person that we trust, we don't expect the person that we respect to betray us in that way, and therefore the fact that he's not a kind of pantomime villain who very obviously has bad intentions right from the start, the fact that it's so subtle and manipulative makes it that much more shocking and that much more heinous. And Larry also reveals that he's always been attracted to sweet young things, and he does understand that that is considered evil. He doesn't necessarily consider himself to be evil, and maybe part of that is denial, maybe part of that is distancing himself from something that he knows is terrible but he can't help. And that kind of idea of that juxtaposition between the Larry that we first see at the start, who is this kind of movie star hero, compared to this broken, disgusting man that we see at the end, who's got nothing left to live for, but still holds on to the thoughts of the horrible things that he did, but in a positive way for him. It really shows that stark appearance versus reality. Francis also has this idea of appearance and reality, so he believes his cowardice has resulted in the suffering of a person that he loves most. And he also believes that he's responsible for the evil that took place because he did nothing to stop it. So there's that in comparison to the fact that he for all intents and purposes, he saved people's lives. He got the Silver Star for bravery. But then, of course, he jumped on that grenade to try and end his own life. So there again there's that appearance and reality of what people see and again, this links very intrinsically with the theme of heroes. We see him being a hero, trying to save other people's lives, but actually the reason he's doing that, the reasoning behind it, is maybe more of a selfish one. But then does that make him less of a hero? And that again is one of those questions that you can link back to that central question that we mentioned in the Heroes episode. So once Francis has exposed the evil side of Larry's nature and really exposed that reality versus the appearance, Larry may feel he's got no option but to commit suicide. So when we talk about that idea of appearance versus reality, really the character of Larry LaSalle is intrinsically linked to that, because the whole of the story really takes us through this idea of who he appears to be and then the horror that he actually is. As well as that, then we've got the idea of appearance and reality linked to the concept of identity, because Francis is unidentifiable because of partly his injuries, but also the fact that he disguises himself. So this theme of identity, or appearance versus this anonymity, it can be linked to lots of other kind of minor themes such as recognition, names, disguise. Francis arrives in Frenchtown and he's determined to hide, to conceal his appearance in order to carry out his mission. And Arthur works out who he is. He works out the reality of who he is in the St. Jude's Club. And the destruction of Francis's face has gone a long way towards protecting this anonymity as well. But Francis also chose to enlist rather than to commit suicide in order to protect his family name from being damaged. So again, keeping up appearances versus the reality, which is far more perhaps difficult to digest. Larry's true identity is always hidden. There's rumours of his life before arriving in Frenchtown, because Joey asks, is that his real name? So we really don't know who this man is. But his true identity is a callous destroyer of innocence. And it's concealed beneath this mask of being this perfect leader, perfect teacher, and stereotypical hero. The community generally accepts this false identity. And his appearances on newsreels and in newspapers support the idealised view of who he is. It was our Larry LaSalle, all right, they say in chapter 9. Now, you can look at that and you can interestingly see the connection between Larry and war, because Larry is shown to be this stereotypical picture book war hero in a picture book depiction of war. And yet we know that the realities of war are grim and traumatic and heinous, in the same way that we know that the reality of Larry LaSalle is traumatic and heinous. So the connection between them there through the theme of appearance and reality is pretty stark. Nicole's name runs through Francis's thoughts throughout the novel. He likens her both to a saint and to a pin-up girl, but when he visits her in chapter 16, he states that her appearance has changed, almost beyond recognition. At this point, she states she's finding out who she really is. So even Nicole has this idea of appearance versus reality. And remember that because of the nature of the chronology of the story, Francis is quite often reminiscing about Nicole. So yes, her appearance has changed, but her appearance has changed because he's seeing her in the present. So he can't manipulate the picture of her through his memory. So yes, she was like a saint and like a pin-up, but how much of that is him embellishing her and embellishing the memory of her because of the perfection that he saw her as? Because remember, he's dedicated his life to avenging her, so the thought of her is going to be embellished in some way to create this fantastical figure. So that idea of appearance and reality links way back to the first episode where we talked about Francis and the biased narrator, because Francis's depiction of Nicole is an appearance and the reality is perhaps closer to the Nicole we see at the end of the story, because that's the Nicole that's been least affected by his reminiscing and his remembering of greater times gone by. There are other references to identity and to disguise in the novel, such as the mysterious baseball player that comes to Frenchtown, and people suspect him of being a major league player in disguise. And many characters hide their true feelings and struggles behind some kind of mask, which ties into that contrast of war and the fact that lots of people hid their problems, such as Arthur Riviere, hid their problems behind a mask of normality, whereas actually he was really struggling with the trauma of war and the aftermath. And that idea of putting up a mask to hide something that you are perhaps ashamed of, because lots of the soldiers were very much ashamed of the feelings that they had and the fact that they struggled to manage their emotions and struggled to manage dealing with the horrors that they saw. So that idea of putting up a mask to hide your struggles is very intrinsically linked, excuse me, again, with the idea of appearance and reality. So that's the end of this episode on appearance and reality in Heroes, just giving you a little bit of an introduction and maybe some pointers as to where to look if you're looking for maybe some quotes or points to make on this theme for an essay question. Thank you very much for listening. Remember that if there's anything that you want to go through, or if there's anything you want us to cover in these episodes, then you can tweet us using the links in the description, or you can click the button and record a voice note for us to listen to and respond to as well, with a chance then to be featured and have your question responded to in another episode. All of the notes that I am using are either a mix of resources that we use in class with embellishment from the York Notes guides, which your teacher may be able to get you a copy of or let you view a copy, or of course they are available to purchase as well. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you in the next episode. The music used in this podcast is by Ixon, and you can find him on SoundCloud. The tracks used are Eclipse and Explore.